So welcome back to the GOAT District. A lot of you were watching Fantasy Mojo, who was just on and was just awesome. But now Dan and I have some business to take care of.
Yes, looking forward to this draft a lot. We have about 30 seconds before we take off here. And we get to play against some high-quality competition. There's several people in this room. They know who they are, who are absolutely fantastic drafters. We have people who have won, national tournaments in this room. It's a little bit of everything in here, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And this time of year, people will say, like, why did you do this one? This time of year, you can't avoid good competition, and we welcome it. So we're stoked for this. Dan, we're going to take Christian McCaffrey here. Dan, we have a team we split where we took Justin Jefferson, but McCaffrey or Taylor, final decision, I guess.
Yeah, basically it's down to those two. And I think as we kind of talked about pre-draft, we're going to go McCaffrey this time and then just see how things unfold.
Awesome.
All right. And we're in.
Yeah, so you usually will see a Taylor and then kind of the big three wide receivers. That's kind of the way it's going to look, I would imagine, in this draft. So Taylor goes, Jefferson. Yep. I'll be curious to see if anybody really reaches with ADP to try to be different in this room tonight. Once in a while, you'll see Diggs go early or Eckler jump some of those top wide receivers. But I would expect this to be Cooper Kupp and the guys that's using the clock.
Yep, more than likely. Could be Chase. I mean, you occasionally see Chase go before Kupp, but more likely Kupp.
And Dan, maybe you could explain the NFFC structure for maybe people that aren't familiar with it, with the third round reversal.
Yeah, so basically this draft, after the first two rounds, when you're looking at the board, it's going to be backwards from what you're normally looking at, because as you wrap around and come through the second round backwards, just like any other draft, when you get to the third round, you're going to go back to team 12 again, and it will go teams 12 through 1 for the third round. Then for the fourth round, will be 1 through 12. So exactly the opposite of normal from rounds 3 onward. And for this particular draft, this is a league that starts 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, and then of course 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback, 1 kicker, 1 defense. So you're going to see a little bit more of a bias towards the wide receivers in here, a little bit less towards the running backs, but you'll still see a lot of running backs going pretty soon. What you'll most likely see is that tight ends tend to kind of get pushed down a lot further than they would in some other draft rooms.
So we see our first ADP jump tonight.
Right.
Najee Harris goes at the 5 spot, allowing Danny Bueller to get us 106 Jamar Chase, which I'm sure he's a little happy about.
Oh, no doubt about that. And I know that Nelson Sousa, who's in the 12 spot, he really likes drafting out of that 12 spot. So be interesting to see what he puts together there. We had Kyle Hillesheim with Stephon Diggs. So that lets Eckler fall to Chad Schrader. So he's got his first nice little gift right there, I would say.
I've drafted a few of these with Nelson. We partner up on a few drafts in New York City, and he's put together some monsters from the back end of these. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Chad's got to be happy with getting an Eckler at the 109. We'll talk to him about that tomorrow night. But yeah, Diggs. We see Kyle take Diggs at the 8 spot. I feel like Diggs is kind of, he's like that wild card in NFFC and FFWC drafts, where you'll see him occasionally jump the big 3. You'll see him be like wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2 overall. Like, I think that a lot of people are really, really high on Diggs in high stakes right now.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, he tends to go higher in these formats where you're starting 3 wide receivers and 1 flex versus FFPC where it's 2 wide receivers and 2 flex, which tends to push him more to the back end of the round. All right, and Saquon went to team 11. I'm going to take a wild guess. I'm going to guess it's going to be Swift for Dalvin Cook. All right, and let's see Swift. There it is.
Okay, so we see the running backs go kind of in a row right here. I'd imagine Mixon's going to go pretty soon, and Aaron Jones will go as well. And Kamara might go before those guys because he's kind of been shooting up.
Yep.
And Dan, you're starting to load our queue. I can see it.
Yep. And as you can see, I put a player in the second spot of the queue that I think I don't know if he'll make it down to us, but
it'll be interesting for sure. So
yeah,
we see CeeDee Lamb go. Sometimes you see CeeDee Lamb go in the first round of these NFFC and FFPC drafts as well. And he's living in the first round in FFWC. Lamb is a player we're both bullish on, Dan. What do you think about him in that spot? Is he just like a hammer to you, or is there still some question marks?
Oh yeah, Barkley Lamb is an awesome start. And as a matter of fact, Andrew and I are doing an FFPC main right now, a slow one that we started. It was the reverse order. We did Lamb Barkley, but the same two players to start our team off. So
I've loved my teams when I end up with a Diggs or a Lamb and a Barkley or a Swift somewhere in that back end of the first round, early second. I've loved those teams. You see Kelsey go mid-second. We actually saw him slide to, I believe it was Nelson in the early third the other day. So like Dan said, tight ends can fall. It's kind of an opportunity cost in this format to draft a tight end early because you're starting 3 wide receivers and a flex every week. So like you can feel great about it, but then you're trying to fill out those wide receiver spots. It can kind of backfire, but Kelsey shouldn't hurt Team 7 too much. Okay, Dan, we're coming up. I'm looking at you here. There's a number of names I'm pretty comfortable with. I like the first person you have queued up. Obviously, I like the second person a lot, and I have a lot of him. I would kind of hope for one of those two. And the second to last name on your board, I think, would give us a little bit more of a unique pairing. So I'm very open to him as well. The last guy on the board, I think we let float away. I don't think he's got enough upside. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now that we know for sure we have enough players in our queue. All right.
So this will be interesting. We had Javonte in the queue. He would have been an interesting decision. I think he's starting to rise up slightly. You see him here at the 209.
All right, there goes Pittman. I'm sorry, Theo. We'll pour one out. You did not get your Pittman share here.
No, I did not. It would have been nice to get him. Okay, so we're OTC here.
Yep, I think the last guy we're going to take for sure. Who else do we want of the first 3 guys?
For me, it would be number 4 here.
Yep.
And then it would be number 2 as my runner-up choice. You could talk me into the first guy on the list. But I just think that he's rising up. I think we'll be happy we did it because I don't know if it's as common yet. But it's a guy I feel more comfortable than I did maybe 2 weeks ago. All
right. So we're going to go with number 2 and number 4 on the list?
Yeah, I'll let you make the decision.
All right. Yeah, we'll do it in this order.
Okay, so we go running back. I like it. I think that it helps us cover up RB2, and it also gives us he's one of the last running backs that we are really excited about. So I think there's a couple of running backs that you'll see go, the Nick Chubbs, the James Connors, but I don't think they have quite the upside receiving wise that Travis Etienne does. So I'm good with that. I'm happy we went there. I
just feel like there's going to be enough talent at the wide receiver position dropping down that I don't think we would see that quite the same at the 3-4 turn at running back as we will at wide receiver. We'll see if that is correct or not.
Yeah, and the last time we split an OC was one of the earlier ones, but we ended up with not quite a 0 RB team, but it was very much we push down running back. So I think it kind of shows you that you can approach this format with many different strategies. And we now have a running back start. So we're kind of open to multiple strategies across this format and FFPC for that matter. I think this year kind of lends it to that. But I mean, between McCaffrey and ETN, there's a chance we drafted the top 2 receiving backs in football this year. You got to kind of like Saquon to be up there, Kamara, obviously, but ETN could catch a lot of balls this year.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and he looked just real smooth in the preseason game against Cleveland as well. So like the way he was running, he's really good at finding a couple extra yards on almost every run.
Yeah, it's easy to think about if you try to like project next year's first round, you could see Travis Etienne being a first rounder next year. So I think we get a guy that's got some unknown upside and he's ascending. Danny Mueller, I bet you takes AJ Brown here. Actually be surprised if he doesn't. Oh, he went Cortland Sutton.
Okay.
Goes to show you. Cortland Sutton is a guy who we've asked every single guest almost this summer on the GOAT District, who is the wide receiver 1 overall if you're not picking Jefferson, Kupp, and Jamar Chase. And we've had multiple people give Cortland Sutton as an answer. Glenn Lowy did. And I believe it was Chris Vaccaro who was the other one. So we're seeing a lot of very bullish people on Sutton.
Yep, and I like that we have 5 players in our queue right now, and that will cover our next 2 picks.
100%. I'm going through just to make sure we're not missing anybody, but I really, really like the players you have queued up, and I think they're kind of the correct names. I'll throw one more guy. I don't know if you're a little worried about him, but I threw him in there.
Yeah, I probably like him less than the 5 we already had in.
Okay,
but I could be talked into him. I mean,
yeah, he's interesting to me because I think he's got some upside. I
mean, I would put him more on more even with the guy right in front of him in our queue.
Yeah.
So I can see the conversation there. Really,
I'm adding one more guy to the queue. That's kind of a interesting, safer play. That's maybe not as exciting. So we see DJ Moore go. We had him in the queue.
Yeah, he was actually who I was hoping we could get for
team 3 with a really nice, There goes Mike Williams. So right now, I think based on the way the board's going, I really think we're wide receiver here. We're committed into it. I would have liked to get one of those 2 guys. Right now we have 4 guys in the queue.
Yep.
Who would be your number 1 pick?
Right now, my number 1 pick is going to be the top guy in the queue.
Yeah, I'll defer to you. I don't love him, but I think that he fills a need here, and I think he's got big time touchdown upside. So why don't we run it? You can run it down to just a couple seconds though, Dan, because it gives us a little more time to kind of think about this next pick. Okay.
And then what do you want to do after that? 2nd, 3rd, or 4th guy?
Well, let's take the first guy so we don't time out. Okay. I would kind of like to go with the second guy.
Okay.
Because I think it opens us up to the best offense of the guys we have listed. And I think it also lends itself to a really quick start. Playing against these managers, they're going to be hitting the waiver wire extremely well. So we need to draft really well. And I think that this guy, any way you cut it, I think he's got the highest upside for like the first few weeks of the season. And there's something to be said with that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think any of the other guys are quite as compelling. So
let's take him. Number 2. Okay, let's take him. So we took Hollywood Brown and we took Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson was your favorite guy that we had in the queue, Dan. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about your expectations for him?
Yeah, so with Allen Robinson, I mean, it's kind of, you're going off the idea that this is going to be a high-powered offense. They're going to be passing a lot, using a lot of 11 personnel. So there'll be 3 wide receivers on the field. So this guy's going to be on the field a lot. And, Cooper Kupp burned a lot of NFL teams last year. I mean, the Rams just destroyed them with Kupp. And I think that there's going to be a lot of defenses that know that they're playing the Rams that are going to be looking at how do we stop Cooper Kupp and kind of forcing somebody else to beat him. Plus, it sounds like Stafford and Robinson have had great rapport. All the beat writer reports have been very glowing about Allen Robinson. He looks rejuvenated and everything else. So, while it's, definitely a little bit scary to be drafting a guy in the 3rd round in a draft like this that was so terrible last year, you got to take some chances. So I
think that a lot of fantasy football is touchdown related. And like you said, it's an offense that's going to pass for a lot of touchdowns. And I think that Allen Robinson could have a huge bounce back year. That's a guy that McVay and Stafford both targeted to come to LA. And we'll kind of give him a mulligan for last year. I mean, if you look at his stats for the previous 2 seasons, he's able to handle a ton of targets. This year, I think he's got a lot of outs to fantasy value. They could have a really consolidated target tree, especially with Van Jefferson banged up and kind of like, the other names, Tutu Atwell and guys like that, don't really seem like anybody they're going to lean on. So I think they have to use Robinson. And I think he's got a big ceiling in terms of touchdowns. And, people saying, he looked bad last year. Yeah, I get it. I get the kind of the bearish argument, but Robert Woods gained a ton of fantasy value when he became an LA Ram. Odell Beckham was, people weren't even starting him in fantasy leagues. He was left for dead and then had a big bounce back. So I think McVay knows how to get a lot out of these guys. And I think it's a fine pick. And then Hollywood Brown, I really like because there's no DeAndre Hopkins to start the year. Hollywood's missed a couple of practices, but I don't really worry about it. I don't think it's any kind of major injury. I think it's just maintenance. He's got the connection with Kyler Murray. I think he could have a big-time season. And like I said, the fast start is something we like because hopefully we're going to add guys that can kind of grow in their roles as the season moves along in the next few rounds. But I know we can lean on Hollywood Brown getting potentially a 25% target share in the Arizona offense to start the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just loading a few players into the queue here.
I love the queue now, Dan, but I have a feeling that it's just going to be sad to watch this queue disappear.
Yeah, for sure. I expect most of these guys to disappear, but there will be a few. There's going to be 1 or 2 of them left. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, for sure. And the 3rd round reversal is interesting. There also is a Kentucky Derby style in the NFFC where maybe you want to explain that, Dan.
Yeah, so you have some control over what slot you get in the NFFC because basically what you can do is you can order the draft slots, from 1 to 12 in whatever order you want, and then what the NFFC does when they randomize is they draw, and if you get the number,
not sure.
Like if you get the number 4, after the first 3 people have gotten whatever their best pick is, then the computer will go and it will look and it will see, okay, you're next up. What's the highest pick you have left in your queue of draft picks? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that you explained that very well. So basically you have a little more say in where you're drafting. And with the 3rd round reversal and with the Kentucky Derby style drafting, it can be a very unique format. I think one other thing we see in the NFFC as opposed to FFPC is the quarterback position. Quarterbacks, it's 6-point passing touchdowns in this format. So you'll see quarterbacks go slightly earlier. And I think that people just kind of as anecdotal, I think there's a lot more stacking and correlating I've seen lately. Not massive stacks, but I think you'll see the sharper players trying to have some sort of correlation. So it makes it a little easier to kind of look at these teams, and I'll see Team 6. I think they'd be more open to trying to have a Trey Lance build, and whatnot. I think that's always in the back of my mind.
Right.
We see Amon-Ra St. Brown inside the 4th round. I took him at the 4-5 turn in my FFPC main event a couple days ago. He seems to be kind of rising up, and people are kind of becoming more and more excited to draft him. Where are you at on ARSB, Dan?
I like him. I mean, I think he's shown that he's going to earn targets really no matter what. With Jameson Williams hopefully coming online later in the year, I think that's more of a threat to DJ Chark than it is to St. Brown. Also noticed that Chad Schroeder put together Josh Allen, Gabe Diggs stack there, so we got a little stack going there.
Yeah, that's a nice little mini stack.
Yep.
Kyle has a nice build. Kyle took down the NFFC Primetime 2 seasons ago. Really sharp guy. He's come on the GOAT District, and he's got a build that I've often done in this format where he has 1 running back but four wide receivers, and I think he's got a really scary build right now with Diggs, Jones, T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. If Jeudy or Moore take a big step forward, that team is dangerous for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if Danny Mueller is going to do the same thing Kyle did. Danny right now has 1 running back and 3 wide receivers. I think he might go wide out here. And he does. He takes Chris Godwin. So wide receivers are just flying off the shelf here. It's good that we went wide receiver at that 3-4 turn.
Mm-hmm.
Because we really would be kicking ourselves if we would have taken another running back.
Right, exactly. And I still like ETN there, but it kind of shows. We had AJ Brown as kind of our second choice there, and it shows what the build would have looked like if we'd had AJ Brown in there. We would have had a nice trifecta of wide receivers, so all the starting lineup spots filled at wide receiver, at McCaffrey, and then coming around the 5-6 turn. With options of going several different ways. We still have a lot of options going into this. I don't feel married to taking wide receiver coming up here at all.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But it's going to be a consideration for sure. I mean, anybody who knows anything about the NFFC absolutely knows that that's going to be a consideration.
Ooh. Kenneth Walker pick right there was a rough one. I think that
that was an auto pick too, so
that might get backed up because I'm not looking at the same board Dan is, but if he autoed Kenneth Walker, I'm not sure because Kenneth Walker is injured. I'm not sure if he even had him in the queue.
Yeah, I have my own ADP rankings in here, so I'm not sure if he was next up on the normal queue or not.
Yeah, well, we'll see because Team 4 is running to the table right now to get their pick in. I would be there. You go.
I was going to say I would hope they are anyway. All right, so we need to start thinking about who we like.
Okay, so there's
right now.
Go ahead.
Right now, I like the 2nd and 4th in our queue a lot.
Yeah, I like those guys.
And the last one as well.
So I like the last one is the one that I loaded.
Yep.
Okay, I like him. I like a few of these guys. Do we want to pivot and potentially take a different position?
I mean, we could. There's a couple players I think that that we both really like. The player at the top of the queue. Yeah,
we do. I will point out to you that this is our second time drafting in this, and the player that you have number 1 is we drafted him. Did we draft him last time or no?
I don't think we.
Okay.
Yeah, we might have.
Yeah. So I think that for me, I would rather go with Adam Thielen was just taken, so he's out of consideration. We're looking at a couple of these higher upside potential wide receivers that are younger. I'm going to kind of pound the table here for number 5.
All right.
I think that
I'm going to kind of pound the table for number 3.
Okay.
So,
I think we can go with both of those. Do you have any? Let's take. Who do you want the most here? 5 or 3?
Probably 3.
Okay. Let's take 3.
All right.
Okay, so I will just say to you, I'm open to any of the guys in the queue. 2 doesn't make much sense to me because I don't think we're going to be able to do what we want to do anymore. That was kind of a bang play.
Yep.
So to me, it's does 1 give us a better chance of winning this league than 4 or 5? And are we overlooking? I'm just going to throw him out there. It's very boring, but I threw one more guy into the queue. I don't want to take him. I hope you don't want to take him. Okay. I think we should go with number 4. But I would go with 3 or 1. They're all kind of even to me. It's more structural versus upside here.
Yeah, I'm with you on number 4. I'm taking him. Okay,
let's take him. Okay, so we take Kadarius Toney and we take Brandon Ayuk, 2 guys that we feel can kind of beat their ADP. It was tough to we can talk about him when he's drafted, so we don't get a little like no table talk type thing here. But
yeah,
I think we're going to be glad we went wide receiver because now we have 4 wide receivers.
Really good flex play, because he's one of those guys that, really the sky is the limit, but almost anything can happen with him too. He's shown to be a little bit injury prone, all that kind of stuff. So relying on him as one of my top 3 wide receivers makes me a little bit edgy, but having him as my 4th wide receiver, I feel a lot more confident about that.
I'm going to load a couple guys in the queue that I want us to take rounds and rounds from now, but I'm kind of having a forward look here.
Okay. Yeah, that works for me.
So we got to make sure you adjust the queue here while I'm attempting to be the quasi JD running the show here.
All right. I'll do that.
So we see AJ Dillon go. Right now, still available. You've got a lot of running backs. You start to see them start to go like David Montgomery. And then you're going to see some of those guys that kind of nobody wants to draft. They might be there when we pick again, Dan. Some of those times those guys really get pushed back. So Montgomery goes.
Yep.
And then now it gets a little bit choppy at running back, where it's kind of like a personal preference. And there's a couple of guys people like, but it might not be the next 6 guys.
Yep. Totally agree.
So Danny, I'm not sure which way Danny will go here because Danny has 4 wide receivers to go with Fournette. I think that's open for him. I think he might go tight end here.
Yeah, he could go a lot of different ways here. He could go quarterback, tight end, running back.
So he goes wide receiver there.
Wide receiver.
He went with the hammer. And we had DeAndre Hopkins in our queue as well. I think that he's got kind of the perfect build to draft DeAndre Hopkins because he's got 3 wide receivers that he can really lean on the first few weeks. Godwin, we'll see when he plays, but if he has those 4 guys starting week 1 and he's able to get, starting weeks out of those guys, when Hopkins comes back, he could have a really nice start to the year and then drop a 15-point per game type guy in his flex or wide receiver 3 hole. So that's a really nice pick. And I think you need to have that sort of a build to take DeAndre Hopkins in this. Do you kind of agree on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like normally I don't like having Godwin and Hopkins on the same team just because I don't know what's going to happen the first few weeks of the season with Godwin. But when you already have those 3 wide receivers, then it makes it possible to do that. Now he's going to have to hit on a good solid running back as well to pair up with Fournette, and also potentially have somebody else, some other player that he drafts later than now as his flex as well. So
hopefully we can snipe him on one of those guys so we can, talk a little trash to him after the draft would be good.
Right.
Friendly trash. We love Danny.
Yes, Danny's awesome.
Chad goes with Hunter Renfroe. We'll be interested to see what he thinks of that pick, whether that's a guy that he likes a lot or was a structure. Renfroe has a floor. We all saw his ceiling last year. He finished as a wide receiver 1. So he gets him towards the end of the 6th round. It just goes to show you kind of this format where Renfroe's in the 6th round, where if you're an FFPC drafter, you might get Renfroe in like the late 7th or 8th round consistently. So in the NFFC here, he goes in the 6th. And then we see Christian Kirk go. So a lot of people are really filling up. Interested to see what Nelson does here. He's got back-to-back picks. He's got a very balanced team, a very dangerous build as always. He could go wide receiver, running back. He could go with a QB here. I'll be interested to see what he does.
I'm going to bet he goes with a QB for this next pick.
Okay, so he builds Philadelphia. He builds a nice little Philadelphia correlation play. He takes Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts. I like that a lot. Nelson's got a dangerous team as always. He's got Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. And then he's got Tyreek Hill, Darnell Mooney, Michael Thomas, Devonta Smith with Jalen Hurts. That's a very good build at the 12, and it just goes to show you that the 3rd round reversal makes that 12 spot potentially super dangerous. If Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, Nelson has a really, really, really good team right now. And I like how he got some correlation there where he did Smith and Hurts back to back. I think that's going to end up paying off. And he did that with a couple other quarterbacks still on the board, but he pushed Hurts up. So that's an interesting thing to do. Team 11 gets RB2. They take Tony Pollard. I like him a lot. I think that's great value. Yep. Now you're starting to see the QBs go a little bit. I'm going to load a few more guys in our queue. I'm loading one I'm kind of come around on, Dan.
All right.
I'm loading one more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loading a few more that I think we kind of like. And
here, I just threw one in.
Okay. And I'm going to put 2 more guys in there. Yeah, so I think we're going to have some really good options here. And I think like a lot of people when they're drafting kind of really think about their first couple of picks, but to me this is like the money. The 7 through 10 rounds in an FFPC or NFFC or FFWC, if you draft the right guys in these rounds, it can really, really turbocharge your team. So I think we got to nail these 2, Dan.
Yeah, I would agree.
I love the Chase Edmonds pick. We had him in our queue. That's a great pick by Kyle. The GOAT District's fans of his. Now we've kind of had conversion by the sword with Andrew. So I think the full GOAT District is fans of Chase Edmonds. But Kyle's got a nice team. Kyle drafted well, as always.
Yeah, I'm still a little worried that Andrew might recant under pressure, but,
Well, listen, we got 3 weeks till Vegas. We've just got to keep him on the Edmonds train for 3 more weeks, and then he can go back to hating him. Yeah. Just 3 weeks. At least be open to it, Andrew.
Let's hope he does not hate him until after the season, at least.
I've been drafting a decent amount of Tyler Lockett. I think he's just so cheap. 7th round seems high for some people that maybe just draft FFPC, but like it's hard for me to see Tyler Lockett disappearing even in a bad offense. The guy's consistently produced, and I think like he might be a wide receiver 3, but I don't think he's gonna disappear and be like a wide receiver 4.
Right. Yeah, I think you're onto something there.
I really like the 3rd player on our list. I'm actually surprised he's still here. This is a little late for him. Now the 2nd player on our list, he's kind of moved up for me. There's a number of guys you have in the queue here that are really exciting though. So we're 5 picks away, and I think we're gonna end up with 2 guys we really like. I'm coming through and making sure we're not missing out on anybody. But I think you've got the right guys.
I think so. I really like the first player in our queue.
Oh, I think it's kind of, yeah, I'm with you completely.
Because it would be a reach for the third player, and it would be a value for the first player, I think.
Yes.
And both of them should work pretty well with our build.
Yeah.
And then the second player, yeah, if he's there, the second and fourth players, second, fourth, and sixth, I like the best.
Yes. I've really come around on a couple of these guys. I wish we had 3 picks in a row because right now we have 7 guys in our queue. Kyler Murray goes, so that goes away. There's going to be no correlation play with Hollywood Brown, but that's okay because it just means some of these other players lasted.
So let's talk about the second player in the queue.
Okay, so we're OTC here. I think that let's talk it out. I think that player might be here when we pick again. Do you think there's a possibility? Or I
do. I'm willing to push it on that.
Okay, so let's do that. So I think that number 1 is kind of a no-brainer, even though I don't love him. I think he's the best bet to be a wide receiver 1 of the guys we're looking at, and I think that that's something to be said.
Yep.
So let's take him.
Okay, and then while we still have a few seconds to talk,
to me, number 3 or number 4 make a ton of sense. But if you want to take the last guy on the list, I think it kind of makes us a little bit dangerous. It gives us some potential real upside there. But I think at the end of the day, if we take – so we took Allen Lazard. 2 and 3, there could be a major run here, and we could lose out at the position. So
I like 2 or 4. I'm higher on 4 than 3.
I'm really high on 4, but I have a lot of exposure to him.
Okay.
I don't have much 2, and I think today's news kind of makes 2 a little more enticing. 3's really enticing to me too. Maybe we'll have to talk on air about this because I think you should be more open to him. But I think 2 we both love, so let's smash the draft button, Dan, and let's get the guy we both really like.
All right, doing it.
And I think so. We go Sky Moore. We went Allen Lazard. So now we've managed to draft 6 wide receivers after our very robust RB start. Sky Moore is really exciting, and with MiLLY taking an injury today, it might speed up the process. But Sky Moore, I don't know how much we'll like him the first month of the season, but I think he might be one of those guys you get to week 6 and you're starting him every week, no doubt.
Right. And the thing is, he's got multiple paths into, real value, and he is playing, he's on a Patrick Mahomes offense. So start there. I mean, that just gives him a ton of potential right there. But, if Juju gets hurt or is ineffective, or we already know that MiLLY is hurt right now, Scantling, if he goes down, so basically all it takes is one wide receiver injury or whatever for Moore to move up in the pecking order, or Moore could just be good enough to shove one of them to the side. So, that's the other possibility. The one that I actually think is the most likely is that Sky Moore is going to end up being so good that he just shoves one of the other options that most people think are ahead of him out of the way.
And you have also the Tyreek Hill role as a rusher, where he would have those design run plays. It seems like those are all going to go to Sky Moore. We remember how effective Tyreek Hill was as a rookie with the ball in his hands, where they kind of found a way to get him the ball. You also think back to Deebo Samuel, how, Deebo, his rookie year, it took him a few weeks, but then, Dan, you'd say Deebo might have been a little later, might have been week 10 and on, but Deebo just smashed to end the season. He helped people win fantasy leagues. So I think Moore is kind of like that kind of guy that can handle a lot of carries. He was a high school quarterback, a really good one. He was just little. But I've become more and more bullish about him. I've made some dynasty trades for him. and I like him in redraft. We see Chris Olave going, and then we see Garrett Wilson going. So we see 3 rookie wide receivers in this round. Is that Danny? So Danny has a Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow correlation now. Mm-hmm. Danny's is nasty. He's got Ramondre Stevenson as his RB2, Leonard Fournette, Sutton, Bateman, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, Jamar Chase. Danny was the runner-up in this competition last year overall to BiLLiE Wazowski. So both guys are Go District guests and 2 of the best drafters in America.
Yeah, and Danny has taken down the KFFC as well. So
Danny's kind of a legend.
Yeah. So we have Danny, we have Kyle Hillesheim, Chad Schroeder, and Nelson Sousa, who have all won major national contests, sitting in this one draft.
And I have a runner-up, so I'll pat myself on the back for a runner-up.
There you go. Yeah.
I wish I won that one, but I'll take the runner-up. In retrospect, it was hard at the time. And I'll also say this: we had somebody make a comment to us, like, people don't understand how sharp these drafts are. Like, the Vegas drafts, the New York City drafts, the live drafts for NFFC are just some of the hardest drafts you're ever going to be in. FFPC, FFWC also get these guys. You see a lot of crossover in the top players. I've never done the KFFC, but I know, like, Chad does it. Danny does it. Andrew Schellenberg does it. Like, a lot of the guys we really respect do it. So, like, these live drafts, if you ever get a chance to do it, it's kind of like the World Series of Poker, but for fantasy football. It's unbelievable. It's fantastic competition, and you can win a ton of money. So we love it. Dan and I are going to be out in Vegas. We've got a FFPC main event team we're drafting out there. We've got an FFPC varsity. And then Dan, Andrew, and I are doing a online NFFC Super, which is a $2,500 league. It's a closed league, but that should be awesome doing that team with Shelly.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be a lot of fun. And I think you should put Wayne's comment up on the YouTube.
Shout out to Wayne Ellis. Danny took me down in the KFFC. My starting defense scored negative 29 points the last week. I'll never forget that one. Wayne, that is absolutely brutal. That is depressing.
That is beyond a bad beat. This
makes me not want to play KFFC when I see they have huge negative scoring for points allowed. That is so. Wayne, maybe you can answer in the chat. Can you start no defense? Can you just have a defense that's like on a bye and just start them? Or is there some sort of rule? Because that's wild to me. You got negative 29. That's like,
ouch.
Yeah. And then Jessel Jones in the chat. FFWC is 2 flex. So you see how wide receiver heavy the NFFC is. FFWC is even more wide receiver heavy. You might see 100 wide receivers drafted in a big high stakes FFWC draft. I'm splitting a team in their main event with Billy Muzio. That's coming up in the beginning of September. And then I'm going to be doing a FFWC 350 with Cody Carpentier on his podcast. They have the Player Profiler Championship. I write for a Player Profiler. It's a really awesome one. It's like their 350. So yeah, there's a lot of competition in the streets and high stakes right now with those 3 formats. Dan, I look at your queue here.
I'm going to throw in a couple of players that are just super ugly.
Yes.
But if they're ugly enough to get to us, then.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that based on the fact that we have two running backs and we also have 6 wide receivers, I think we're wide open these next 2 picks.
Yep, for sure.
Like, if we would have gone with if we would have forced in any other position, or if we'd gone with tight end or quarterback, we would have really felt like our hands were tied. So 9-10 turn here could be really good for us. We just need to survive 12 picks here, right?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I threw another player in that's
that's a guy that I think will go not much after we're picking, so I think it's a guy we should consider.
Right.
Number 4 in our queue, I like a lot. Number 5, I like it too because it's kind of like a double a potential for something interesting. Yep. And then I like your other guys. Number 2, is just value. I think you're right to have him in the queue. We better queue up a couple other guys though, because we're getting sniped here.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll.
I threw out one more guy. Just I think it'll make sense when you see him. I'm not a huge fan, but it makes a little sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Normally, not a guy I would necessarily be taking a look at, but in this case, it makes enough sense.
Kind of boring. If you want to describe him, boring might be the right word. If anybody's trying to guess who we queued up, unexciting.
Yes, yeah, that would be a good way to put it. I mean, it's just he's kind of in a zone that's a little bit dead for me, but I like him well enough. Or it's a zone that's dead for me at that position. I'll put it that way.
Agreed, but he's a reasonable bet.
Right. Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I think it fits what we're doing, so I'm okay with that.
Sorry if I'm staring off to the side, everyone. I have an iPad set up with our queue, and the draft board is on my computer, so you're getting sideways face a lot on this live stream.
Yep, and I'm kind of looking down a little bit more than what I normally do because my queue is down instead of in front of me. So
okay, and anybody watching the draft, Danny Mueller just took Isaiah Pacheco in the 9th round. He's been living in the 9th round in the big 3 high stakes formats. But we saw him last night go at the 5-6 turn in an FFPC main event. So he's definitely high. We see George Pickens go, another guy who's steaming up. Dan, we had him in the queue. Team 4, you're seeing the problem now with going running back heavy in this. Team 4 has now Cooper Kupp and AJ Brown, which is fantastic. But his wide receiver 3 is George Pickens.
And he can only start 3 of those running backs that he has.
100%.
So yeah, he's way too heavy on running back.
And James Cook and Dameon Pierce combined, I assume he's starting Dameon Pierce in the flex, but
not even. I mean, if he's starting Dobbins in the flex.
Well, Dobbins might miss week 1. That's another problem with that build. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that.
All right. So I think we probably want to take one of our top 2.
Yeah, no doubt. For me, it's number 1 because it gives us exposure to something.
Mm-hmm.
I know you might like number 2 better. I'm not sure. We haven't discussed that, but I think they're close enough in a tier that taking number 1 makes the most sense.
Yep.
And I will say to you, number 3 is interesting because of something else we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think it's a little aggressive, but I think at the end of the day, that position will dry up.
Right.
And then I don't really want to take number 4. It's just too depressing for me at this moment. But if you want to take him with our second pick, why don't we take let's take the first guy on the list before we clock out here. Okay, so we get a Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk correlation play. Okay, Dan. So right now I would say number 1 because I think we're going to see the position completely dry up, and it's a double down play. I threw one more guy in the queue, but I know he's going to get drafted, and I think right now we'd have him behind number 1 as my wide receiver 2, just to show you kind of where I think that position's at. I'm putting one more guy in the queue I think we should get next go around. Okay. If you want to go a different direction, let's go a different direction. But I think that
I'm on board with the number 1 player in our queue. I'm going to go ahead and hit the draft button, and then we'll talk about him.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Okay.
So we took Romeo Doubs, and we also have Alan Lazard. So we have what we think are the top 2 wide receivers in Green Bay. I think it's kind of an exciting build because I think maybe they're getting. I think that offense has maybe started to get devalued a little bit. I think they're going to score points, and I think that we're not in love with Alan Lazard, the talent, but I think the opportunity is there. And I think if he fails, it means Dubs really takes a step forward. Unless we can foresee a scenario where one of like the maybe older, dustier wide receivers, does something we're not expecting, or the tight ends who both kind of have question marks do something big. One of the two guys we drafted is going to be a weekly starter.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're kind of, we're playing it a little bit cautious there by taking both of those guys instead of putting our chips all in on one of them. But I don't mind that when you're talking about like our fifth and seventh wide receiver either. Because if we can, if one of them really takes off and becomes one of our top 3 or 4 wide receivers, then that's certainly worth having.
Yeah, and I think that the wide receiver spot in general starts to dry up a little bit. I think maybe a few weeks back you were getting better value. Like Jalen Tolbert, you were able to get him in like the 12th round, and now you're seeing him going inside the 9th round. Jahan Dotson has moved up big time. You see Dotson go in the 9th round. He's getting a lot of steam. Obviously, George Pickens is one of the hottest names in all of fantasy football right now. So we grabbed a guy who, we talked about it with Fantasy Mojo tonight. Romeo Dubs is going to get, insane fab bids in some of these leagues. So I'm fine taking him there. And we passed up a couple of running backs who were selected. We had Cordero Patterson, Antonio Gibson, and Rachaad White. This is probably the lowest Antonio Gibson's gone in an OC since they started going. I would be interested if Tom and Greg, if either one of you guys are listening in on this, I'd be interested.
I might be able to tell you, at least in the last few days.
Snooze threw out Zach Ertz.
Yes. Antonio Gibson has gone in the past as late as pick 114. So he's actually gone a little bit later in one draft.
That's crazy. It's like
pick 114, and we're on pick 120 right now. So yeah, he would have gone a couple players later, but still, what I really like, Theo, about our build right now is that we're sitting on basically the mother load of wide receivers here, which means that we can, we really only have to go back to wide receiver when we see value. We're not gonna feel forced to take wide receiver from here on out, but it certainly isn't going to stop us from taking wide receiver that we like.
Yeah, I feel like you can get by with 7. It's a 20-man roster. And you're starting 3 wide receivers every week, but in reality, most of the time, the way Dan and I build our teams, we're starting 4. But you can get away with a running back or tight end in the flex as well. So you could get by with 7. Usually, I end up with.
I expect we'll draft another wide receiver or 2. I'm just saying we don't really need to be. We don't have to. We're not forced into. We got to get one now.
Yeah, and we anybody who's wondering our tight end build, we're never really, Dan and I are never really kind of forcing tight end. We take it kind of where the value is. I'll take early tight end sometimes, but I'm perfectly comfortable in this format taking tight end anywhere. Going late, going mid, going early. I'm just not going to push it up. Shout out to Wayne. Our wide receivers are not sexy, but I think it was the best choices for team construction. I agree. Especially after the RB start, you have to make up for it.
Yep.
Shout out to Snooze. Brian Robinson moved up fast. Call me crazy, but I'd rather punt on B-Rob than Pacheco. I think B-Rob's heading higher, Snooze. I took him in at the 10-11 turn of a when did I take him? I think it was an 11th round pick in the main event the other night in the FFPC. I think the coaching staff loves him. And they don't love Gibson right now. So I think that Robinson could be heading into like that 9th round range. eventually. But I mean, listen, but Pacheco, at the end of the day, you're betting on offenses as well, and Pacheco is in a much, much, much better offense. So I think that's a lot of the appeal of him is Andy Reid's had a ton of success with running backs. He might have an opportunity. I think even if it's a split, he might be the goal line back, and he looks good catching the football. So whatever you think of Pacheco, I mean, you got to kind of like the Chiefs to score a lot of points.
Yeah, for sure.
Wayne Ellis, shout out again. I did the Dubs Lance turn. That was excellent drafting. Thank you. We appreciate that from a player like you, Wayne. And yeah, it was good to get Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk seems like he's going to really benefit from Lance, who can throw a real deep ball, and he could have a real bounce back. So we're coming up on the clock here. Dan, we've got 4 guys in the queue I kind of agree with. Let's see where we're at, though, because we're 4 picks away. I'm going to throw one more guy.
I'm going to move number 2 down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I like our top 2. The number 3 guy is somebody I'm thinking not around this turn, but if he's there at the next turn.
Are you off of 4? Are you off of 4 who I just put in? Because I might have 4 ahead of 2 right now.
3 now?
Oh, excuse me, 3. I'm at a 3 ahead of 2 because I think that you're betting on the same thing. Maybe not quite the weekly floor, but
I think number 1 is going to have more standalone value than number 3 here.
Okay, I'll defer to you on that one.
But really, I'm fine since Ertz went. We could take both of them if we really wanted to, or I put in.
I don't think we need to go in that direction yet.
Okay. So should we go?
I think we'll be able to cover up later.
1 and 3 then.
So 1 and 3. Yeah, I think we go 1 and 3. I think it's the right move for this build.
Yep.
I will say, okay, so let's take 1.
Okay. Yeah, I'll hit him before our timer runs out.
So I just think I don't really want to do it, but I think that the guy who's number 3 right now might be gone, and it kind of makes sense, even though it's probably too safe of a structural build. I think we take number 2, who I think kind of has big upside, and he's kind of similar to Herbert in a sense.
I see what you're liking in number 3, but yeah, I think our build is going.
Yeah, and you could end up holding 2 bad tickets if you do that too.
Right, exactly.
So let's take Isaiah Spiller here.
All right, done deal.
Yeah, so like I like Spiller maybe a little bit more than Herbert right now. I think they're kind of in the similar tier. I loved what I saw out of Ebner the other night. Not to have table talk, because I'm sure somebody's going to take him in like the 19th round, 18th round here. But like, I don't know. Herbert, I get it, because I agree with you that he's going to have a weekly floor that Spiller might not have. But I think that Spiller, like if Eckler goes down, is a top.
Well, but the thing is, they're also talking about what's his name from a couple of years ago. The other Chargers running back.
I know. I see that. I see that too. But at the end of the day, I don't think those guys are like. I think it's kind of like compliment your veterans type deal. Like I thought Spiller looked pretty good. They used a 4th round pick on him. They've talked him up. But yeah, I mean, we've seen what those other Chargers backs can do. They're jabs.
Yeah, and they don't really have that much pass catching upside, whereas Spiller does. So I mean, some of the high value touches would definitely go to him.
Yeah.
All right. So we got Wandale, who we're talking about, would be a good pairing with Tony, but not necessarily for us because we already paired Lazard and Dubes. So it doesn't really make sense to have another pairing of Tony and Wandale, and especially with the way the running backs were starting to dry up.
Yeah, we had Wandale in the queue. That's who we were kind of talking about. And I've done that, the Wandale Tony double down a few times, but it used to be a lot cheaper. You used to be able to take Tony in like the 8th round and then take Wandale in like the 18th round. and you'd have that great pairing. I have that in Dynasty as well, and in Best Ball. But now it's expensive. And like I alluded to with Dan, like Tony misses some time or underperforms, and Wandell underperforms. You might be holding two guys you don't want to start, but you're kind of holding on to them. It's I don't know. It's tough to double down on offenses we're not really sure of. Like I know Green Bay's going to score points.
Right.
Like they're not going to regress that much. Like maybe if they struggle, they'll be like the 15th best offense this year. But they're not going to be like the Giants. The Giants, we think are going to take a big step forward. And I live on Long Island, and people are super bullish on the offensive line right now. And Barkley looks great, but there's a chance they're just not good. And you're not starting those guys. So I don't know. It's tough. Dan, would you ever double down with, like, I really like Elijah Moore and I really like Breece Hall. Are you ever doubling down on two Jets where you have to take them in like let's say the third or fourth and then the fifth or sixth?
Too many players from a bad offense.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
What about a Drake London, Kyle Pitts in FFPC? That one seems kind of reasonable just because I think it could be such a condensed target share. Would you ever do that?
Could be. I mean, I think I'd rather pair up like Drake London and Cordero Patterson, and go a little bit cheaper that way.
I took Cordero. We had him in our queue, and I took him in an OC I did maybe 10 days ago where I really waited on RB2. I think he's being slept on a little bit. Just if you get stuck at running back, I think you can go with Cordero because I don't think he's a guy you can rely on to be your starter in week 8. But I think if you're looking for a guy for production for the first 3 weeks of the season, we might view the Falcons as a rebuilding team, but I think that their coaching staff and their players are going to go for it. And I think that Cordero wants to break all these records this year. He's got a nice size contract. And I think they're going to have to lean on him a little bit as an offensive weapon. So I don't mind taking him when I get stuck.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're right on, Dan. I think it was smart to go running back because you're starting to see like a real run here with McKissick, Algier, Zamir White, and Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I was afraid we were going to be really in a bad hole if we didn't get a pair of running backs there.
I'd like to also point out Nelson has quietly built a really nice Philadelphia Eagles stack where he's got Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. So he's got 4 Eagles, and I think that was really nice. A nice build by Nelson to have that.
Yeah, the one of the toughest things is, man, Philly's schedule of pass defenses they face weeks 15 through 17 though it's a murderer's row. It's just ugly.
Yeah, I mean,
they face. Hang on, let me pull it up here. They face Chicago, Dallas, New Orleans, and Dallas, New Orleans is week 16 and 17.
New Orleans defense is going to just be lights out.
Yeah, for sure.
But I will say that, like, with the Sanders exposure with Hurts, like, the Philadelphia showed that they can run the ball last year, and I think they're going to be a super up-tempo offense. I think that's kind of the way things are going. Sirianni's a guy I've kind of grown on, and I think he kind of gets it. So I think that, like, it's easy to kind of project these defenses, but at the end of the day, that Philadelphia offense, to have that many pieces of it with that offensive line, I mean, that could be really effective for Nelson.
Yeah, sure could.
Looking at our queue now, we saw Aaron Rodgers go. We had him in the queue with Dubs and Lazard. But you can always make up at QB2, and we really like Trey Lance, so that's not something we're crying on. But Team 7 did wait on QB, and they got Rodgers in the 12th round. Hey, listen, he's Aaron Rodgers. It looks like he's a guy that's outside.
Is still waiting on QB.
Team 2, he's got some. I would imagine he's gonna maybe go. I don't know how late he's going to wait because it's kind of like a danger zone where people start taking their QB2.
Right.
it's a little bit dangerous because there's maybe 3 guys I kind of would be somewhat comfortable starting week 1. And then after that, it gets a little choppy. I like number 4 and number 5 in your queue a lot.
Yep.
I think those are really good picks. I don't know if we need both of them, but I think they're both good names.
Well, we're only going to get one of them anyway.
Yeah, I see that one.
Right now, I kind of like numbers 3 and 4.
I agree with you. Okay, so right now it would be number 2 and 3. Do you want to put some consideration into number 1?
No, I think we can. I'm comfortable going a different way for now.
Okay, so I think let's take number 3, and then before we take number 2, let's just kind of look through and make sure we're not. I don't think we're really missing anybody. I think that 2 kind of stands out. Why don't we put in 3?
Yep, I'll put them in one this time.
Let me just give it a quick glance, make sure we're not really missing out on anything.
Okay.
I don't think we are. I added one more guy in the queue, who I think we both would say is not as appealing. I'll throw one more guy in the queue. Do either of those 2 names interest you like number 2 does?
Not like number 2 does, no.
Okay, so then I think it's a no-brainer. Let's take number 2.
Okay.
Okay, so we take Alec Pierce, who's a guy that we've warmed up to a lot. He's flashing every day in camp. I think that there's room for a second Colts wide receiver to be potentially flex worthy as the season moves along. Pierce is getting like a ton of buzz. He's super athletic. He's big, and he makes flash plays at practice. And then we take Hassan Haskins. Shout out to Hassan Haskins' grandmother. She tweeted.
Yes.
I had a nice Hassan Haskins tweet, and she was a wonderful lady. She said that that's my grandson. He's a great running back, and it was really cool to get that interaction on Twitter. We root for Hassan Haskins in the Goats District. We have a ton of him in Dynasty. And, like, I think that the first preseason game, like, people were not, like, over the moon with him, but I believe he caught 4 passes, which was pretty cool to see.
Right.
They have a couple other running backs kind of in the mix, but I think Haskins seems like the most direct replacement to Derrick Henry. So we have a potential high upside guy. Kind of a similar play to our Spiller play, maybe a little less exciting than Spiller.
Yeah, I think so. But if Henry goes down, I mean, then he gets very exciting. Just as if Eckler goes down, Spiller gets very exciting. So
100%. 100%. So you're starting to see we had a few of these guys in our queue, and they all just went. So it just goes to show you how tight these drafts are. We had Albert Okwuegbunam in consideration with the last 2 picks. Team 2 takes him as their tight end 2. I think that's a fine play that they made, considering that they're at 6 wide receivers now, so they probably view him as a high upside guy.
Yeah. You got to be, if you're taking him there, you got to be thinking about putting him in your flex at times.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it probably doesn't make much sense to make that pick.
No, I agree with you.
So if that's what he's thinking, then that's good on him. But if he's thinking that's just kind of a this is the guy I'm going to start when Andrews is on bye, then that's a little early for me.
I like a few of the guys that you've queued up.
Yep. Now check what Danny Mueller did. He just took TDP and Trey Sermon. So he's just kind of doing the anti Elijah Mitchell bet here. I
like that a lot.
Yeah, just roster. I love that strategy of just rostering a couple of late running backs on the same team, where you're not quite sure who the backup might be, and you're just it's kind of a bet against the starter. For whatever reason that might be, whether you think he might get injured or whether you think he might be ineffective or whatever.
There are a few FFPC people that are known players who are doing the same thing that Danny just did with that double tap. I think that there's also a chance that Jeff Wilson gets cut. There's some rumors that he gets cut. So that could be a really sneaky play that Danny just did. Wayne Ellis, Danny's a great drafter. Yes, he is, for sure.
All right.
Price has
contacted the admin for help.
Wayne is talking Julius Chestnut. Julius Chestnut's looked very good in the preseason. He would be kind of the name that would make any Hassan Haskins drafter a little nervous. He had a lot of juice. Sacred Heart running back, which is kind of a cool story. But I don't know. I like Haskins more. I mean, he's bigger and he's got more pedigree. Michigan guy, 4th round pick. And Derrick Henry's talked about Hassan Haskins as well. So,
yep. And our draft is currently paused right now. And the Derek Carr pick was rolled back for Kenyon Drake.
And shout out to Jessel Jones. Aaron Rodgers said that A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, he'd like to see them each catch 50 passes. But Aaron Rodgers has specifically talked about Allen Lazard being the number one for him. He's talked about this 4 or 5 times now. And at the end of the day, there is a coach and there is an offensive coordinator, but Dan will be the first one to tell you that the guy running the offense in Green Bay is Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers, if Lazard is his guy, he is going to force feed Allen Lazard and get Allen Lazard, all kinds of chances to produce. And I will say Lazard is huge. Lazard is a 6'5", maybe I don't have his official stats in front of me, but he's got to be 215, 220 and 6'5". He's a big wide receiver too. So we've seen how much success Rodgers has had with Devontae Adams in the red zone, feeding a wide receiver close to the goal line. Lazard could potentially do that. He's obviously not Devontae Adams. He's a different kind of wide receiver one. But I think Lazard is got some safety because if he's going to be Rodgers' number one target, then his floor is kind of wide receiver 3-ish. That's kind of where I'm at with him. I've kind of warmed up to him. It's a pick that Andrew Schellenberg will not like when he looks at our board, but I think Dan and I are both kind of happy where we got him.
Yeah, and there was the least surprising pick of all, Nelson taking Mike Davis. He's been all over him.
That's a good play. And Mike Davis might start week 1 in Baltimore.
Right, exactly.
So Wayne Ellis is talking about he's taking Julius Chestnut in the 33rd round of Draft Masters. He's super interesting, but not as interesting as Hassan Haskins. Just to clarify.
Right.
We've got a pretty big queue right now, Dan.
Yes, we do. It's the best kind of queue to have at this stage of the draft.
Yeah. I'm going to throw my guy in there, even though you're going to be grossed out by seeing him in there.
Gross.
That one. I know. I just want you to open yourself to consideration. But I'm not gonna force any pick on you that you're gonna throw up about. But I don't think he's quite vomit worthy this year. I think he could return some value, but we'll see. Hopefully we don't have to make that decision. Number 3 is super interesting. And then I like number 6 a lot in our queue.
Okay.
I like him a lot. I think he kind of makes sense for this build. But we'll see. We might just get sniped real quick with a bunch of picks in a row. Okay, so you're starting to see the top 2 defenses. Chad takes the Buffalo Bills, and then you're seeing Kyle take the Colts. The Colts defense has been kind of pushed up. They've got a beautiful early season schedule. I think 3 of their first 5 games are smash games, and their hard matchups are at home. So they're interesting. We see Jamison Williams go. Evan Engram was a guy we had in our queue. I don't like seeing that one, but Danny waited on tight end, got Cole Kmet, and then got Evan Engram. It's very Dan Williamson-like tight end drafting there.
That is two of my favorite guys right there. So
two guys I have a ton of as well, and both could potentially. I mean, Danny has a really, really nice team here. And I like what he did with
congrats to Danny for sniping us all the way down from the 6th spot, because I would have loved Ramondre Stevenson.
100%. I would have loved Ramondre as well. He got great value on Ramondre. I've seen Ramondre go inside the end of the 6th round in this format.
Right.
He's starting to climb up. So we still have a big queue here.
Yep. And I like the number 1 guy.
Yeah, I do too.
And I'm going to add one more down below that guy that I don't like.
Well, for some reason, I'm doing this on the iPad. I can't really see the queue. So maybe you could move up by position. Okay, so we're OTC here. I think number 1 makes the most sense, and I think we both really like him.
Yep. So I gave us 3 options there at that position.
For me, it's 1 and 3.
Okay. For me, it's 1 and 2. So let's get 1 for sure.
We can kind of talk about. Let's take number 1. We both like him.
Okay, I'll take him when it's time. Then who do you want to take? What do you want to do with the next pick? Do you want to go?
I think that it makes a lot of sense when you look at the positional queue to do what I think we both know we need to do. Because I think it might be completely dry, and then you're okay. Let's take Everett. So it comes down to do we foresee another run here? Because I think like 3 kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
3 makes a lot of sense, and also I guess 6 makes some sense to me, but maybe I'm overrating him a little bit. So for me,
I think he makes sense, but probably not here.
Okay, so I think we should go 1 or 2. Honestly, I don't.
Do you want to see who I've got voted in?
No, I can't see it on this iPad.
Number 3 on our queue.
Oh yeah, I see him a lot. I like him as well. So I'll kind of defer to you on this one for these top 3 guys.
All right.
Okay, so we went Jerick McKinnon, who we both like a lot. And then I think that kind of gives us some flexibility, because I don't think we're forced to take another running back, because we hit with our build. I think we're okay unless we love somebody coming up. We have to take a kicker. We have to take a defense. So we're pretty open. You see Kyren Williams going. Kyren Williams is kind of interesting. There's no guarantee he's going to play at all in the preseason. McVay's not sure when he's going to be back. But you have Darrell Henderson. Sounds like he might be behind Akers in terms of who's in terms of injury level. They both have like soft tissue things dealing with, but I think you'll see like Funk to me is like a special teams guy. So I don't think Funk is going to be like, if healthy, I think Kyren Williams is better than Funk.
Yeah.
So he's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think they drafted Kyren to, eventually take over because Henderson's on his final contract year. So I don't think they're going to have him back.
Shout out to Snooze, who's been great all chat. Dubs Rise smells like J-Rob the legend, though unlikely an exciting pick to watch. And Wayne agrees with it. Snooze, I don't know if that was questioning the Gerald Everett pick or suggesting it, because I'm not as good at JD with the chat. But yeah, Gerald Everett we like. It gives us exposure to a tight end in a great offense. Gerald Everett's kind of like those NBA guys who are like 3-and-D guys who will bounce around teams and make like $10 million each year. and they you just see him every year on different NBA teams. Everett just bounces around teams, and he's in a great situation.
Shout out to Kyle Hillesheim for taking David Njoku and removing the temptation for Theo to stump for him.
We're having a bit of a argument. Dan and I usually, so Dan and I have drafted together actually quite a bit. And we usually don't have kind of heated arguments on guys, but I'm a lot higher on Njoku than Dan is at this point. And we had him in the queue last pick. Listen, I'm open to the guy. I think he's going to be an every down player. They gave him a ton of money. You make great points that he's never really done anything, but at the end of the day, it's not an offense that has enough wide receivers that I think he can be ignored on, and I think that they want to see some return on their investment. So I don't know.
I would rather take Harrison Bryant in the last round than take Njoku earlier. Honestly,
I'll say Njoku played every snap with the starters. They didn't work in any of the other tight ends. So I don't know. I'm kind of on him, but I actually took him in an FFPC main event, and that was the pick that Dan really didn't like that I made. I got a little critique from Dan, so that we'll continue to talk Njoku, but I don't think we need to draft them together this year. I'm not like pounding a table for him. I just think that he does belong in the discussion with some of the tight ends we see drafted in this range.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we've only seen 3 defenses go off the board.
Right.
And we're starting to see team kickers go. Maybe you could explain how the NFFC is a little different than FFPC with the kickers, Dan.
Yeah, so the NFFC just does team kicker now, which is something they started the first COVID year. And it made a lot of sense just because you didn't have to sit there and try to mess around with, well, what happens if my kicker comes up with COVID or whatever. It's just you're going to get whoever's kicking for the team, which really makes it, what it does is it kind of pushes the kickers down a little bit later because people are more willing to take a team kicker from a team where you don't really know who the kicker is going to be yet, but you know that the team is going to provide a lot of field goal opportunities and extra point opportunities.
Yeah, it was a great change. I wish that FFPC had that.
For sure.
It makes sense because it's one position we don't want to have to worry about in Fab, and NFFC takes care of it. So shout out to the NFFC for that great rule change. Probably it might be really the only good thing to come from the COVID environment. High stakes months, or we could call it years. But that's something that I'm glad they stuck with.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll also say that tight end wise, like anybody drafting high stakes or home leagues last year, you saw, Dalton Schultz, you saw Dawson Knox both come off the waiver wire. Dan is somewhat of a tight end whisperer, so I don't worry about, us being able to get value on the wire. It happens every year. So we can say this year is different, but it's not. There'll be a tight end or two that are waiver wire guys that finish as top 15 tight ends. It happens every single year. For whatever reason, it's a position that people just do not cap as well. Usually, fantasy football is very good at predicting the top 5-ish tight ends. But after that, it's hard. So like at the end of the day, we know Kelsey and Andrews and Kyle Pitts and probably Waller, probably Kittle. But after that, even the guys like Hawkinson and Schultz and Goddard, they all have big range of outcomes. So that's kind of
loving this kicker run. Loving it.
Listen, if they want to take a kicker run, it's
drafting kickers.
Yeah.
Drafting.
Right now I see about 15 options at kicker, Dan. So I don't think we really need to push it here at the 17-18.
Right. I don't know if you saw who I put number 1 in the queue.
I like them.
The matchup week 1.
Well, I'd like you to consider I just put a team in the queue. I'm having trouble doing it on the iPad, but If you look at the bottom of the queue, they also have some very interesting matchups, and I think that they're super talented. I wouldn't mind taking them kind of ahead. I think we could.
Okay, which one? We've top 3. Which answer do you like? Take a look.
I like number 3 the most, but I can defer to you if you like number 1 or 2 more than 3.
I just like the matchup for 1. I do like number 3. I think it's a great pick.
Who do they play week 1? I don't have the schedule in front of me. Do you know?
They play.
Again, when we're streaming this, I cannot have.
They play Atlanta, so that's a good matchup.
Yeah, I think that's that for me. That's like a set it and forget it type play for the year if we take them.
All right, I'm taking them.
Okay. Now it comes down to here.
All right. So I took off.
I like the second to last player on the queue.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of gives us a little bit of a double down of what we've done.
Yep.
I don't think he makes it back.
Okay.
I think that
I'm with you.
3 makes sense too. The top 3 makes sense, but I think there's a chance one of those guys makes it back.
Right.
And I like the last guy in our queue, probably more than you, and I think he can make it back too.
Okay. All right.
You want to go with that player? I know you like him.
Yeah, I like him. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So we took Treston Ebner. So we took Khalil Herbert earlier. So we have an anti-David Montgomery play here, if you want to call it that. But Ebner is really interesting because he just looks really good, and he's very successful at catching the ball. This could be somewhat of an ugly committee in Chicago. Dan, is that how you're reading the room for the Bears?
Yeah, I think that's quite possible. So yeah, I'm in on Ebner. He's and of course he is a Baylor Bear. So
yeah, absolutely.
For that reason alone, all you need to do is just look back over here, and you'll see my reason for enjoying Baylor Bears.
And like you see Abram Smith also in camp in New Orleans. But so maybe Ebner, I think, went kind of under the radar. There was always a couple of people that really, really liked him that we played Dynasty against. Like Ebner's kind of always been on that radar, but it seems like the drum beats for him are strong. Chicago kind of lacks playmakers. So I think there's a chance you could see him kind of in a, let's call it a Tariq Cohen type role. A Tariq Cohen light type role would be the kind of a bullish argument for him where they have to use him as a pass catching back. I think Herbert can do some of that as well. So I like both those guys. And I think it's a reasonable double down because, again, we took Ebner in the 18th round, which is a round where you could even cut a guy in the first waiver wire run and not really be annoyed about it. So you see Mark Ingram, you see Samaje Perine. You're seeing Travis Homer go to Team 3. I think Homer is going to start getting drafted. DJ Dallas and Homer, people are going to take shots on pretty much from here on out because of the news with Ken Walker having it looks like Dan, what they're calling it a groin injury or a sports hernia, something along those lines.
Something like that, yeah.
So that's kind of like Rashad Bateman last year.
Yep.
That's like guy could miss 6 weeks, something like that.
Yep. Theo, take a look at the private chat. I have a question in there that we need to figure out the answer to. Hold
on. Let me see. I'm opening up on the phone because I feel like if I open it, I'm just going to show Twitter our private chat.
No. It's designed so you can't.
Okay, let me see. I kind of lean towards number 1 on that.
Okay. I do as well.
Yeah, I think we just.
Okay.
I'd rather take that shot.
All right. Yeah, I'm the same. I think the other position, there's still going to be reasonable options if we need to do something on the waiver wire.
Yeah. So we see Nelson take his tight end too with Robert Tonyan. Nelson has again a very nice build. He took the Denver Broncos defense, which is a defense I've been drafting a lot. He took Amir Abdullah and Tonyan. Both of those guys could stick. He had a nice running back run with Raheem Mostert, who was named a co-starter in Miami, along with Deonta Foreman and Mike Davis. That was kind of a nice run for him with 3 like veteran backs that could pay off. Team 11 had the Saquon CeeDee Lamb start, and I like what he did. He followed up. He got Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, and then he got Tony Pollard, which I like a lot. And then at the end of the day, he got 2 running backs that, people are not really excited about, but getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 8th round and Josh Jacobs in the 9th. I mean, he kind of beat up. Yeah, and then he got the Julio Jones.
I was thinking hard about Josh Jacobs at the 7-8 turn. So
yeah, I mean that's great value. I mean, he's really beat up. And then we like Danny Mueller's build a lot. We really liked Kyle, a lot of what Kyle did. I'm looking towards the front half of the draft.
Yep.
This was a well drafted.
We're starting to come down towards our pick. Let's think about.
Yeah,
we have basically number 1, 2, and 3. We need to pick one of them, and number 4, 5, and 6. Those would be my top options for the other position.
Okay, I mean, for me, I like for the second position. I always have been drafting number 3 because I think he's in a good spot. Number 1, I can see why you like him. I think he's very good as well. And then for the top position, I mean, look, you can kind of talk me into any of those 3 guys. I'm always going to kind of lean to number 3, though. I think it's kind of the unknown role with a very talented guy, and I think he's kind of beat up. And we've seen him succeed in previous seasons. It might be a moot point. I don't think Team 6 doesn't take a tight end. Team 4 has 2 tight ends. Every team has 2 tight ends. So unless somebody, unless somebody wants to draft 3 tight ends, then
structurally, I think
number 1's enticing in the sense because I think he's such a floor play. I think to me, 3 or 2 is at least has some ceiling. 2 is the best player though. Like we know, or excuse me, he'd be number 3. Like the guy's had a ton of success with terrible situations, and now he's getting completely brushed aside. Look at his finishes the last 2 years.
All right, yeah, let's go with him.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay, and then of the 2 kickers that are left, we have Tampa and Denver.
I like Denver. I mean, I've been taking McManus. I think that it's an offense that's gonna move the ball really easily, but I think there could be more field goal attempts the first few weeks than maybe they like. And we like McManus, so
that works for me.
Okay, so we wrapped it up here. We went with a single QB build, which is, at the end of the day, Dan, I'm looking at the QBs right now, and there's like 10 starters that are still on the waiver wire if they're not selected now. So I'm not worried about it.
Right, exactly. I would rather have that lottery ticket at a different position, whether you want to call it our running back or wide receiver. But that's where we put it. And we really de-emphasize tight end in this draft, which I think is okay because of what we've talked about in previous podcasts is you've got the in the NFFC, tight ends are really cheap to pick up, and they're always startable tight ends on the waiver wire. I mean, even if it's just a 1 week, and you've had a lot option or whatever, you can kind of sneeze them. You've
had a lot of success over the years doing that, Dan.
Yeah, you can kind of stream them.
Yeah. No, like I said, I know that it's not you don't want to say, hey, I'm just going to make up for it the waiver wire, but again, I think if we needed to, we could. And I think there's a chance that Everett sneaks inside that tight end 1 line based on touchdowns because I think he's got big time touchdown appeal. I'm a sucker for Noah Fant. Noah Fant's had multiple tight end 1 finishes in his career. He was the big name player that was sent over. I mean, unless you want to, we're not even going to dignify, little Drew Lock action, but Noah Fant was sent over in the trade. I think it kind of would make Seattle feel a little bit better about themselves to have some contribution from him. And I think it's a low volume passing attack. And Lockett and Metcalf obviously are going to get theirs, but Fant doesn't really have a wide receiver 3 that he's having to deal with. So I think he can really beat his ADP. Whether that means he's startable or not remains to be seen, but I feel like he's going to finish ahead of where he was drafted. I like what we did at the wide receiver spot, Dan. I think we I wouldn't say forced it. I think we were forced to take wide receiver at the 3-4 turn. I think we each got a guy we liked. And then 5-6, I'm very glad we went in that direction because I think between Ayuk and Tony, we have 2 upside guys. And then we have the Lazard and Moore plays, I think kind of balance each other out. And then to add Romeo Doubs, I think that was a really, really nice wide receiver build.
Yeah, for sure. As I'm going back, the Sky Moore pick, if it was a running back, I think we still could have done a pretty good build that way, but I sure don't hate the Sky Moore pick either. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to say. If any of our later running backs hit, then we're going to be happy we did what we did.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like Kareem Hunt, Dameon Pierce, Rashad Penny, or kind of one of the beat up assets versus Sky Moore, you can make a big argument either way. I think that Sky Moore, though, has potential to be the wide receiver 1 in the Kansas City offense. I think it's going to be Juju. But again, you saw Juju go in the 4th round. I think Sky Moore has a chance that he scores the most fantasy points of any Kansas City wide receiver. And I think that alone is worth taking at the 801.
Yep.
So I like this team. I think this is a good build. It's good to have you back from vacation and back in the grind. And I think you're probably drafting every day until kickoff, like I am. So this was great, Dan. Yeah. We need to do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely will. Gotta throw up there. JD calls our strategy the dumbbell: 2 stud running backs, Pesiel, and then the double tap the running back again. So it's the less fancy way of saying bimodal. It's Canadian. It's Canadian for bimodal running back. Shout out to JD. We had an awesome. If anybody tuned in just for this, check out the pod we put out with Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani before this. It was awesome. Some invaluable resource for any high stakes players, whether you are FFPC, NFFC, or FFWC or KFFC. You're going to want to check out Darren Armani, Fantasy Mojo. He was extremely generous with his time and the information that he dropped. He had some incredible stuff. And then tomorrow night, we're going to have Chad Schrader coming back on the GOAT District. I believe this is his 3rd time in the district. He's probably the most successful fantasy football player ever in the history of the game. And he drafted here in the 9 hole. So we're excited to be able to talk to him about a draft we just did with him. Shout out to everybody in the chat. This was live. Dan, any closing words? No, definitely looking forward to that show tomorrow night. Chad Schroeder, obviously, the very best, top of the top. You can't think of anybody who's any better than him. And there's only a handful of people that I would even think about putting on his level. So be happy to have him on, and I'll be happy to get his thoughts on this.
And he's the all-time winningest NFFC player of all time by a considerable margin. So that'd be awesome to have him on. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. We did a double bill on the GOAT District tonight. Check us out tomorrow. Check us out next week. We're dropping some great pods all the way until draft season. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.